The flimsy wooden door didn't just slam shut. The sound was the final, brutal end of a chapter in Alara's life. Banished by her own blood, she stood all alone, with nothing but a threadbare bag and the ghost of a memory of her mother's smile. She was an orphan, a burden, a ship thrown into a storm without a sail or a rudder. With tears blurring the familiar path of her village, she turned her face towards the distant, uncaring glow of the city, a place she had only ever heard of in whispers. She was just 18, and as she took that first step into the unknown, she felt the world she knew crumble to dust behind her. Her life, as she knew it, was over. She had no idea that a new one, more extraordinary than she could ever imagine, was just about to begin. The flimsy wooden door didn't just slam shut. The sound was the final, brutal end of a chapter in Alara's life. Through the splintered wood, she could hear her uncle's last words, spat at her with the venom of years of resentment. "You are a curse upon this house, a ghost of your dead parents we've fed for too long. Go now and never return. The city will swallow you whole. It's where you belong." It hadn't always been this way. Alara's earliest memories were bathed in the warm, golden light of her parents' love. They were humble farmers, their hands calloused from work but always gentle with her. Her father would lift her onto his shoulders, and together they'd look out over the small patch of land that was their entire world, his laughter a melody that danced with the rustling leaves. Her mother's lullabies were softer than silk, promises of a future filled with joy and safety. They were poor in coin, but rich in love, a fortress of affection that made their small hut feel like a castle. But fate can be a cruel architect. When Alara was 7, a sudden, merciless fever swept through the village, and her fortress crumbled. She remembered the hushed whispers, the scent of medicinal herbs, and then the terrifying stillness that followed. Her parents were gone, leaving a void so huge it threatened to swallow her whole. Her father's brother, a man named Yorick, and his wife, Mara, took her in. They lived on the other side of the village, but the short walk to their house felt like a journey to a different, colder world. From the very beginning, it was clear she wasn't family. She was a chore. Yorick's eyes held none of her father's warmth, only a constant, simmering resentment. He saw her as just another mouth to feed, a living reminder of the brother he'd always been jealous of. Mara, a woman whose heart seemed to have shriveled from bitterness, treated Alara like an unwelcome shadow. While their own 2 sons got the best parts of every meal, Alara got the scraps. While they slept on soft mattresses, she had a thin mat in the corner of the kitchen, where the cold from the stone floor seeped right into her bones. Her days became a cycle of endless work. She rose before the sun to fetch water, her small hands struggling with the heavy buckets. She tended their fields, cleaned their house, and mended their clothes, her life reduced to a series of silent tasks. The words "thank you" were never spoken. Instead, she was met with constant criticism. Her efforts were never enough. "Faster, you lazy girl," Yorick would bark. "Do you think this food just appears from thin air?" Mara would sneer, even as Alara ate the last burnt piece of bread. She was a ghost in their house, silent and invisible, her spirit slowly being worn down by their relentless cruelty. Her only comfort was Anya, an elderly woman who lived at the edge of the village. Anya's eyes, wrinkled and kind, saw the girl underneath the dirt and sadness. She would secretly slip Alara a piece of fruit or a warm biscuit, small acts of kindness that were lifelines in Alara's desolate world. Anya had been friends with Alara's mother and saw the same gentle spirit in her daughter. "Your heart is a garden, little one," Anya would whisper, her voice like rustling leaves. "Don't let their weeds choke your flowers. Kindness is a seed that can grow anywhere." On the day she was banished, as Alara was being pushed out the door, Anya appeared as if from nowhere. She pressed a small, smooth stone into Alara's palm. It was a simple, gray river stone, but it felt warm from Anya's hand. "This is for you," she said, her voice firm despite the tears in her eyes. "It's a wishing stone, but it doesn't grant wishes for riches or power. It's a reminder that even the hardest stone can be made smooth with time and persistence, and a reminder that even when you have nothing, you can still hold on to hope."
Those were the words echoing in Alara's mind as the village disappeared behind her. She clutched the stone, its smoothness a stark contrast.
The rain fell with a relentless, mournful rhythm, each drop hammering away at Alara's spirit. She sat hunched on the park bench, a solitary figure wrapped in misery. In her pocket, her fingers found her very last possession of value, a small piece of bread. Her stomach ached with hunger, but then she saw a small, scruffy dog hiding under the bench, shivering even more than she was. Its eyes were large and sad, and in them, Alara saw her own despair. Without a second thought, she broke the bread in two and held a piece out to the dog. It crept forward, snatched the food, and devoured it in seconds. A flicker of something warm sparked in Alara's chest. In that one small, selfless act, she felt a sliver of her own humanity return. As she offered the dog the second piece, a commotion nearby broke the quiet. An elderly man, walking slowly with a cane, had stumbled and fallen hard on the wet pavement. He cried out in pain, a sharp sound that was quickly swallowed by the city's indifference. People glanced over, their faces blank, before hurrying on their way, their umbrellas like shields against getting involved. They were too busy, too preoccupied, too disconnected. But Alara wasn't. Forgetting her own hunger and cold, she jumped up and rushed to the man's side. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, her voice full of genuine concern. The man was pale, his face twisted in pain. "My leg, I think it's broken," he gasped. "Don't worry, I'll get help," Alara said, her mind racing. She had no phone, no money for a taxi. She looked around frantically, her eyes landing on a small coffee kiosk across the street. She ran, her soaked clothes clinging to her, and burst in. "Please," she pleaded with the barista. "An old man has fallen in the park. Can you call an ambulance?" The barista, annoyed at the puddle she was making, just pointed to a payphone on the wall. Alara's heart sank. She didn't have a single coin. Just as despair was about to set in, she remembered the small pouch tied around her waist. Her numb fingers fumbled with the knot. Inside were the last few coins she had in the world, money she had been saving for a meal. Without hesitation, she used them to make the call. She stayed with the man, talking to him in a calm, soothing voice, shielding his face from the rain with her own body until the paramedics arrived. She gave them what little information she could, and then, as they lifted the man into the ambulance, she simply faded back into the rainy landscape, not expecting any thanks or reward. She had just done what anyone should have done. But she hadn't been unnoticed. From the window of a sleek black car parked across the street, a man had watched the whole thing. His name was Damien Sterling, a man whose name meant wealth and power, the enigmatic CEO of Sterling Industries. He was known for his sharp mind and ruthless efficiency, but few knew the man behind the corporate armor. Damien had come to the park for a moment of quiet, a brief escape from a world of calculated deals and superficial relationships. He'd seen the crowd's indifference, a sight all too familiar to him, and then he had seen her. He watched as this girl, who looked like she had nothing, gave away her last piece of food. He watched as she ran into the rain to help a complete stranger. He saw her use what was likely her last coins to call for help, and he watched as she disappeared without a second thought. He had seen something he thought no longer existed in the world, pure, selfless kindness. Damien told his driver to follow her. He watched as she walked, aimless and shivering, before slumping onto another bench, exhaustion finally taking over. He got out of the car and approached her quietly, holding a large black umbrella. Alara didn't notice him until he was standing right in front of her, shielding her from the rain. She looked up, startled, at the tall, well-dressed man. His face was stern, but his eyes held a strange, unreadable expression. "You're going to catch a cold," he said, his voice a low, steady baritone. Alara, assuming he was some official about to tell her to move along, started to stammer an apology. "I'm sorry, I'll go." "I saw what you did for that old man and the dog," he paused, studying her face, seeing the weariness in her eyes, but also an unbroken strength. "It's the rarest kind of person who has nothing yet gives everything to help a stranger." He extended a hand. "I own a company. We have a cafeteria with warm food. Please, let me offer you a meal. It's the least I can do." Alara was suspicious. The city had taught her that nothing was free, that kindness from a stranger often came with a hidden, dangerous price.
But the man's gaze was direct and held no hint of deception, and the thought of a warm meal was an irresistible call to her starving body. Hesitantly, she took his hand. It was warm and strong, and as he helped her to her feet, she felt a flicker of hope, brighter than any she had felt before. She had no idea she had just placed her hand in the hand of a billionaire, and this simple act of kindness was about to change her destiny forever. The car was a bubble of silent warmth, gliding through the rain-slicked streets with impossible smoothness. For Alara, who had only known the jarring ride of the village bus, it felt like a dream. She sat stiffly on the plush leather seat, scared to touch anything, acutely aware of her damp, tattered clothes in these luxurious surroundings. Damian Sterling sat beside her, a quiet, powerful presence. He didn't push her with questions. Instead, he just handed her a warm, dry blanket, an unspoken gesture of care that meant more than words. They didn't go to a simple cafeteria. The car pulled into a private garage beneath a towering skyscraper of shimmering glass and steel, Sterling Industries. The building itself seemed to pierce the clouds, a monument to a world of wealth she had only ever glimpsed from far away. Damian led her to a private elevator that opened directly into a stunning penthouse apartment at the top of the building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the sprawling city below. "The cafeteria is closed," he said calmly. "My personal chef."
2 years went by. Alara was no longer the frightened girl who had arrived in the city with nothing. She was a poised, articulate woman, now the co-director of the Sterling Foundation. Under her and Damian's leadership, the foundation had become a leading force for social good. Her story, though kept private, was the quiet engine behind her tireless work. She never forgot the cold of the streets or the ache of hunger, and she fought every day so others wouldn't have to suffer as she had. Her bond with Damian had blossomed into a deep, quiet love, built on shared purpose, late-night talks, and the simple comfort of knowing they'd found a kindred spirit in each other. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, the past came calling. Alara was in her office when her assistant said she had visitors. "They say they're your family," the assistant said, a hint of confusion in her voice. Ilara's heart froze. She walked to the reception area, and there they were, her Uncle Jorik and Aunt Mara. They looked completely out of place in the gleaming modern lobby, their faces a mix of awe and greed. Jorik was wearing a suit that was too tight, and Mara was clutching a worn-out handbag. They looked older and more worn down, but their eyes held the same familiar avarice. When they saw her, their faces split into wide, fake smiles. "Alara, my dear niece," Jorik exclaimed, rushing forward to hug her. She flinched and took a step back. "What are you doing here?" Alara asked. Her voice was cold and steady, a voice they didn't recognize. "We heard about your success," Mara said, her own voice sickeningly sweet. "We are so, so proud of you. We always knew you were special." The hypocrisy was so shameless it was almost stunning. They'd come for money, of course they had. News of the Sterling Foundation was often in the papers, and it wouldn't have been hard to connect the dots. "You threw me out," Alara stated flatly. "You told me the city would swallow me whole. You left me to die." Jorik's smile faltered. "Now, Alara, that was just a misunderstanding. We were struggling. We thought you'd be better off seeking your fortune. It was for your own good. We did it out of love." The lie was so grotesque it was almost laughable. Alara looked at them, the two people who had made her childhood a living hell, and she felt nothing. The pain was gone, replaced by a calm, clear-eyed understanding. They had no power over her anymore. "I know what you did," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "and I know why you're here. You want money, but you will not get it, not from me." Mara's mask crumbled, replaced by her familiar sneer. "After all we did for you, taking you in when you were a pathetic orphan, this is how you repay us?" "You did nothing for me," Alara corrected her. "You used me.
You starved me. You abused me. You have no right to stand here and ask me for anything." She turned to a security guard who had been watching discreetly. "Please escort these people out." As they were being led away, Jorik shouted, "You'll regret this, you ungrateful wretch! You owe us!" His words faded down the hall, leaving silence behind. Ilara stood there for a long moment, expecting a storm of emotion, anger, sadness, vindication. But all she felt was a profound sense of peace. That door was finally, truly closed. She was free. That evening, Ilara stood with Damien on the penthouse balcony, looking out at the city lights twinkling like a sea of fallen stars. She told him what had happened. He listened silently, his hand finding hers and holding it tight. "Are you all right?" he asked when she finished. She turned to him, a genuine smile on her lips. "I am," she said. "For the first time, I truly am. They have no hold on me anymore." In the end, Ilara didn't choose revenge. She chose to build. The next year, the Sterling Foundation launched its most ambitious project yet, a rural development program. And the first village they chose to partner with was her own. She returned not as a victim seeking payback, but as a benefactor. She oversaw the building of a new school, a clean water facility, and a small clinic named after her parents. She found Anya, now frail but with the same kind eyes, and made sure she would be cared for the rest of her days. She held out the smooth gray riverstone. "You were right, Anya," she said softly. "Kindness is a seed, and you planted it in me." Ilara's life became her message. Her story wasn't really about going from rags to riches. It was about turning resilience into redemption. It proved that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the strength of your character and the compassion in your heart. She had been banished by the family she was born into, but in the heart of a cold, unforgiving city, she had found her purpose, her voice, and a new family, one forged not by blood, but by choice, kindness, and love.